June 7, 1944, Normandy, France. The morning after D-Day smells of cordite and wet earth. A thin mist drifts over the Orne River as British sappers work in silence. The ground still trembles from distant artillery. Somewhere beyond the trees, German machine guns spit random bursts of fire, like angry ghosts refusing to fade. Captain John Anderson kneels in the mud, unfolding a canvas blueprint stained with rain and blood. He looks at the ruined bridge ahead, a jagged scar of steel and stone, blocking the only supply route to Caen. The entire armored column waits behind him. Time is a weapon now. He points to a stack of rectangular metal panels on the truck bed. Bailey sections, he mutters. No rivets, no cranes, just bolts and sweat. The men nod, most of them too young to shave properly. They don't know the name of the man who invented this bridge. They just know it has to work before sunset. You can hear the creak of steel against steel as the first section slides forward. Every hammer strike echoes through the valley, a heartbeat of engineering and faith. Rain starts again, soft, persistent, unforgiving. Miles away in London, an aging French engineer named Leon Joe sits by a radio listening to updates from Normandy. He had offered his design to the British years earlier, a modular bridge that any unit could build by hand. It was laughed off at first, called too simple for war. Now his idea is all that stands between success and disaster. Anderson glances at his watch, 14:20 hours. The river is rising, and the tanks are lined up on the ridge. If the bridge isn't ready by dusk, the advance dies here. He clenches his jaw and shouts, "Double time, for God's sake, get it locked!" Hands blur, bolts tighten, steel locks into place. Each panel falls into line like soldiers marching. By nightfall, the first truck edges onto the new bridge. It groans under the weight, but holds. Men cheer quietly, afraid to tempt fate. Somewhere in the dark, Anderson whispers, "He did it. The Frenchman was right." But what did it take for Leon Joe to create a bridge strong enough to change the war, and why was his name almost erased from history?
Paris, 1938. The world is already trembling, though few admit it. In a narrow workshop on Rue Saint-Antoine, Leon Jouhou sketches another impossible diagram, a bridge assembled not by machines, but by men. No rivets, no cranes, only bolts, pins, and courage. Outside, the city hums with talk of politics and fear, but inside this cluttered room, the sound is softer. The scrape of a pencil over paper, the rhythm of invention. Jouhou was not a soldier nor an officer. He was a civil engineer who believed that simplicity was the highest form of strength. His idea was born not in war, but in frustration. During the floods of 1936, he watched relief convoys trapped by destroyed bridges. Weeks were lost. People died waiting for structure and order to return. He swore that no army, no disaster, should ever again be halted by the loss of a single crossing. He built prototypes in secret, scavenging scrap from railway yards, steel lattice beams that could be lifted by 6 men, interlocking joints that clicked together like a child's toy. When he finally demonstrated it to the French Ministry of Defense, a colonel laughed. He said, "It's clever, but wars are won with tanks, not toys." The patent was shelved, funding cut. His name disappeared into bureaucratic dust. 2 years later, when France fell, Jouhou escaped through Spain, carrying only his notebooks and a simple brass model of his modular bridge. He made it to London, thin, exhausted, uninvited. There he found refuge among British engineers desperate for ideas. He offered his plans again, this time to Donald Bailey, a quiet, pragmatic designer at the Ministry of Supply. Bailey studied the sketches for hours. Then he said something no one else had ever said to Jouhou. This could work. Together they refined the concept, replacing the brass model with prefabricated steel panels. Within months, the prototype could hold 20 tons, then 30, then a tank. They called it the Bailey Bridge, though Jouhou's initials remained etched inside one of the earliest frames. Forgotten, but not gone. Now, In 1944, that same design is carrying an entire army across France. The bridge over the Orne holds steady through the night. Trucks roll past, infantry march across. The war moves forward on metal bones, born in a Paris workshop no one remembers. But even as victory takes shape, a question lingers in the dark. Will anyone ever know who really built it? Spring, 1941. Somewhere in southern England, rain lashes the test field at Christchurch. Rows of half-finished bridges glisten under the gray sky. Donald Bailey stands ankle-deep in mud, arms crossed, watching a truck rumble onto a skeletal span of steel. The soldiers around him hold their breath. One wrong calculation, and 10 tons of machinery will crash into the riverbed below. The bridge groans, bends, then holds. Bailey exhales, then slaps the railing twice, his quiet signal for success. Behind him, Lian Zhuhao lowers his binoculars. His eyes are tired, but the corners of his mouth lift for the first time in years. He's seen this exact structure collapse a dozen times before. On paper, in theory, in dreams. Not this time. For months they've lived on black tea, adrenaline, and silence. No one outside this muddy field knows what they're building. A secret project filed under the cold bureaucratic name Portable Bridge, Type M2. Every evening German bombers thunder overhead, unaware that below them, in sheds lit with lanterns, a revolution in military engineering is taking shape. The breakthrough comes by accident. A junior welder forgets to add a support pin during assembly. The frame sags, but instead of snapping, it flexes and recovers. The discovery stuns everyone. Zhuhao shouts, "That's it, that's the balance." The forgotten pin reveals what calculations missed. The structure doesn't need to resist war's chaos, it needs to flow with it. They revise the blueprints again, simplifying further, reducing the number of parts until a bridge section can be built by untrained soldiers using nothing more than wrenches and nerve. Every bolt standardized, every panel interchangeable. It's no longer engineering, it's choreography. Soon reports from field units flood in. The prototype can be assembled by 15 men in under an hour. Bailey presents the results to the War Office. The generals are skeptical until they see a tank drive across one of the spans. When it reaches the other side intact, silence falls over the room. Then applause. Production begins that same week. Thousands of bridge panels stamped from steel, shipped in crates marked Emergency Crossing Kit. Zhuhao signs nothing. His name appears nowhere. When asked if he wants recognition, he only says, "I just want it to hold." 2 years later, his wish will be tested on the beaches of Normandy. At that very moment, under a different sky, Allied commanders are already planning Operation Overlord. They know every river in France will become a line of defense. They don't yet realize that victory will depend on a design scribbled in a Paris workshop by a man the world forgot. June 6, 1944. Dawn. The sky over Normandy burns red with tracer fire. Landing craft surge toward the beaches, their hulls scraping against waves thick with smoke and debris. Inside one of them, a British sapper named Corporal Martin Clark clutches a bundle of steel panels. Not a rifle, not explosives, but the bones of a bridge that hasn't yet existed. When the ramp drops, chaos spills in. Machine gun bursts, screams, water churning with sand and blood. Clark dives behind an anti-tank barrier, dragging his load of panels with him. He doesn't know it yet, but those same panels will open the road to Caen before the week is over. He wipes mud from the crate and reads the faded stenciling. Bailey Section MK2. Portable Bridge Components. By noon, engineers began their silent war, a race against geography itself. The roads are destroyed, rivers swollen, bridges reduced to rubble. The infantry can advance, but the armor is trapped. Without tanks, the beachhead will collapse. At the Orne River, Captain John Anderson receives his orders. Get us across by nightfall. He studies the wrecked French bridge ahead, a blackened arch sagging into the water. Behind him, hundreds of vehicles idle, their engines growling like chained beasts. He doesn't flinch. He knows what to do. Men unload the prefabricated panels, assembling them piece by piece, just as Bailey and Juho had practiced in the English mud 3 years earlier. Hammers echo through the valley, blending with artillery thumps in the distance. Sparks fly from steel edges as wrenches tighten bolts. Every clang sounds like a heartbeat. The first section locks into place, then another, and another. In less than 4 hours, a skeleton of steel stretches halfway across the river. Clark bolts the last panel, his hands shaking from exhaustion. The final pin slides in with a metallic snap that echoes like a victory drum. At 21:10 hours, the first Sherman tank inches forward. The bridge creaks, a long metallic sigh, but it holds. One after another, vehicles crawl across. Soldiers cheer quietly, none want to alert the Germans nearby. When the last truck crosses, Anderson looks back over the water, the reflection of their bridge shimmering under tracer light. "Not bad for a pile of scrap and sweat," he mutters. That night, a message reaches London headquarters. Bridge secure. Column advancing toward Caen. The Allied line surges forward. For the first time since landing, the invasion breathes. Somewhere in England, in a dim office stacked with reports, Donald Bailey reads the telegram in silence. He smiles faintly, but says nothing. Then he glances at a dusty brass model on the shelf, initials etched faintly into its frame. L.J. He whispers, "We didn't build a bridge. We built a road through history. But history doesn't always remember who paved it." Summer 1945. The war is ending, but the bridges remain. Across France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, Bailey bridges span rivers like metallic scars, silent, functional, indestructible. Convoys rumble over them day and night, unaware that they are crossing monuments, not structures. Each bolt still carries fingerprints of soldiers who built them under fire. Each beam hums faintly when trucks pass, as if whispering names long forgotten. In London, Donald Bailey receives the Order of the British Empire. He stands in a pressed uniform, smiling awkwardly for the cameras, as flashbulbs pop and officials call him the man who made the bridge that won the war. But behind the applause, there's an empty chair, no French engineer, no acknowledgement of where the first sketch came from. Juho's contribution has vanished beneath the tide of bureaucracy and victory parades. Back in France, Léon Juho works quietly as a municipal engineer in Rouen. His hands shake when he signs documents. His eyes have the distant look of a man who once watched steel come alive. Sometimes, late at night, he tunes the radio and hears English broadcasts celebrating the Allied campaign. When they mention the Bailey Bridge, he allows himself a tired smile. "Good," he says softly, "as long as it stands." Decades later, historians will uncover fragments of his correspondence, letters exchanged with Bailey, sketches annotated in French cursive, a brass model that somehow survived the Blitz. Experts will argue about authorship, patents, and wartime secrecy. But for the men who fought and crossed those bridges, the truth was simpler. They didn't care whose name was stamped into the metal. They cared that it held. Today, some of those bridges are still in use, weathered, rusted, yet solid. Tourists drive over them without realizing they are crossing relics of an age when courage was measured in bolts and beams. If you listen closely, when the wind passes through the trusses, it sounds like applause, faint, rhythmic, endless. Because somewhere between a forgotten workshop in Paris and the thunder of Normandy, one man's idea changed the pace of history. And though the world forgot his name, his bridge never forgot its purpose.